Welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ollie Hayes, and today I'm bringing you the Start 11 show for Everton against Liverpool, the 120th and final Merseyside Derby at Goodison Park. So let's get straight into it. Here's my prediction on what I think David Moyes will line up with for the Merseyside Derby on Wednesday evening. We'll start in goal, probably the easiest one to predict. It's Jordan Pickford in goal. Obviously, he's going to need to be on top form for this game. We know what kind of attack that Liverpool have. I think they're going to create a lot of chances, and obviously they'll have that fire in their belly after the defeat against Plymouth in the FA Cup. But he always does seem to have a little bit of needle with Liverpool, does Jordan Pickford. So fingers crossed he can keep his form going in the league and maybe get another clean sheet and try and keep Liverpool out. But as I said before, that's probably the easiest one to predict. So moving into the back four, I think Vitaly Mykolenko will regain his place at left back, obviously back in full training. I expect him to come in for Ashley Young. He has had a few decent performances against the likes of Mo Salah and that ilk of winger in recent years. Vitaly Mykolenko, he always does just seem to put in a good performance against an elite winger. So fingers crossed he can replicate that and do that once again. But I think he will come back into the team for Ashley Young, who had arguably quite a difficult day against Bournemouth on Saturday in the FA Cup. And then moving into the two centre halves, I think James Tarkowski and Jared Branthwaite will keep their place. We'll start with Tarkowski. Obviously, he had a very poor game on Saturday, made the mistake for the penalty, and then some calamitous defending for the second goal. So I think he's going to need to improve massively. But Jared Branthwaite, we know that he likes this fixture. He was a scorer in the Merseyside Derby last season at the Park End. So fingers crossed he can replicate that and do that again. But I think they will keep that partnership going in the centre of defence. And then moving to right back, I think I've kind of coined it as the Joleon Lescott role in various starting 11 shows now. I think Jake O'Brien will keep that role. I think he'll keep that wide centre back role, and he's going to need to be alert in this game because, as I've mentioned already, that we know the caliber of player that Liverpool have got going forward. So fingers crossed he can keep his decent run of form going and keep his place there at the right side of defence. But we'll move into the midfield now. And the first player I'm going to mention is Idrissa Gana Gueye. Obviously, as you all know, voted the Toffee Blues Player of the Month for January, and rightly so. I think he had a fantastic month. He showed that he's still a Rolls Royce of a midfielder and fantastic, putting in 7, 8 out of 10 performances week in, week out. So again, I've said this many times, but fingers crossed he can do it against Liverpool because we know how much this one would mean. A top performance in this one, we know how much it would mean to us. But his partner, I think, will be James Garner. I think it's good to see him back in the team. Fingers crossed he can recreate that fantastic assist for Beto that we saw against Leicester. Had a little bit of a difficult afternoon against Bournemouth. I think there was a lot of players on the pitch that did have a difficult afternoon. But if we get the James Garner of the Leicester game, for example, I think he can do really good things for us in midfield. And then into attack in midfield, a lot of people would probably say Abdoulaye Doucouré should keep his place. I think Carlos Alcaraz will come into the team. I think his cameo on Saturday off the bench against Bournemouth was enough for me to start the game. I think he's just so progressive. He's such a top winger, a top midfielder on the ball. I think he's absolutely fantastic. For the little spells we saw of him on Saturday, I think he can really offer us something going forward. And he's got that little bit of an Argentinian magic, which I think we've seen in Merseyside derbies previously. If you look at the likes of Ramiro Funes Mori, that little bit of needle, I think coming from derby games in Argentina, for example, I think they are quite crazy. And maybe Alcaraz can bring some of that needle and some of that fire that can really bring the fight to Liverpool and drag us over the line against Liverpool on Wednesday night. But that completes the midfield. We're moving to the front three now. I think Iliman and Jai will keep his place off the left-hand side. We're just going to need his magic, aren't we? We're going to have to take the chances that we get, which, they could be few and far between. So fingers crossed he can work his magic and keep his league form going. Like so many players in the team, they were on decent form in the league. So fingers crossed he can keep that form going and get on the score sheet once again. And to the right-hand side, I think Jesper Lindstrom will keep his place there. He had I'd say a difficult afternoon against Bournemouth in the FA Cup on Saturday. I was marginal between him and Jack Harrison coming into the team, but I do think Lindstrom just offers that little bit more. I think David Moyes trusts him a little bit more to do that role where he's up and down the wing, maybe more than Jack Harrison, for example. So I think Jesper Lindstrom will keep his place in there, and I'm just hoping he can finally get on the score sheet for Everton or even get an assist because we're going to need to take one of these chances that we get. And moving into the number 9 spot, I think Beto is obviously going to keep his place. I think he's our only available option for this game. So fingers crossed the Beto of Leicester can turn up and not the Beto of Bournemouth, because I think again, I've said it so many times, but he was one of those players that had a difficult afternoon on Saturday. And if he's to recreate the Leicester performance, for example, and get on the score sheet twice, I think he'd be an absolute hero in Everton folklore. But that's who I think is going to start up front. As I said before, there's not many options to replace him, and I think just strength in numbers is going to be massive when the likes of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Armando Broja come back, and even Yusuf Chamiti. So, yeah, I think Beto will start up front, and that rounds up the start 11. So I'll just go through it one more time. So it's Jordan Pickford in goal, Vitaly Mikalenko, James Tarkowski, Jared Branthwaite, and Jake O'Brien, Idrissa Gana-Gay, James Garner, and Carlos Alcaraz as your midfield, Illiman and Jai, Jesper Lindstrom, and Beto as your front three. Obviously, that's only one change, in midfield and one change at the back from what played on Saturday. I think Moyes has kind of found the core of the team which he likes and doesn't want to tweak it too much. So I think that will probably be the team and probably what Moyes will go with for the remainder of the season. But that is all from me today. Let me know your thoughts on this start 11 in the comments. And if you think Moyes is going to make even more drastic changes than this, or do you think he's going to stick with the same start 11 that started against Bournemouth in the FA Cup? But that is all from me today. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I'll speak to you soon.